All right, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Pro Wrestling Logic YouTube channel. Welcome back. It's been a few days since we've done uploads, but that's going to be rectified today. Some technical difficulties for the past few days have led to the uploads being recorded but not uploaded. We're going to take care of that today. If you're new here, like, subscribe, comment below. Today's Raw review from the 4th of May 2020. Anyway, the TNT series continuing, weekly television shows continuing. We will be covering Money in the Bank as well. But anyhow, we start with the VIP Lounge. I think MVP is one of the most underrated talkers in WWE or in pro wrestling right now. I think he's a guy that if they really need to fill segments, if they need to lean on somebody, he's a guy they can do that with. He says that they're going to have class this week as the ladies are going to be part of the segment. Actually, I would put MVP on SmackDown because SmackDown is so desperately needing some talented, well, not even talented, some episodic television that hooks you in. They're missing a hook by far over on SmackDown, and I would even say it goes back and forth for me whether I like Raw or NXT week to week better. But SmackDown is always the third brand to me. I even put 205 Live before SmackDown, which I don't even cover here. That'll tell you how much I dislike the SmackDown brand. But anyway, he's not sure how things are going to go with the MVP Lounge this week with the ladies in there. But then they show highlights of the brawl from last week between the three ladies. Asuka, Baszler, and Jax out. They enter separately, obviously killing time. Asuka is then she's excited. She danced during her own entrance, and she kind of, she's probably the most charismatic non-English speaker ever in wrestling. I'd love if somebody challenged that in the comments below. Jax sits on a coffee table. MVP asks her if she has a skill set to win at Money in the Bank. Jax asks if he even watches Raw. The answer is probably not. So few people are doing it. I doubt he's one of them that does. Asuka then, Jax says she's dominant and that, there's no reason to doubt her dominance and that she'd win. Asuka responded in Japanese. She's still upset that Kairi Sane's been injured. She also says that Jax is no VIP. It's sad when the best promo of the three women is someone who doesn't even speak English. It speaks a lot to Asuka's talent. But, so then MVP asks Baszler a question. She responds with acta non verba, which translates to actions, not words. She then puts the mic down and then explains what it means, gets in Asuka's face. They then do a brawl. They both turn on Nia Jax. They kick her. They beat her up, yada yada. They turn over the table, and then MVP gets in between the two. I hate these brawls that are supposed to hype. Look, if I'm going to watch a match, I want to see who wins. There's nobody that wins or loses in these type of things. It's just time killing because we want to see people do spots and we want to see chaos and we're special. But really, let it, tease the physicality. It's kind of like, and I know this is a family-friendly channel, but it's kind of like when you're getting it on with the lady or guy of your choice. Do you jump right into the finish, or do you tease it? Then there's a little bit of play, and there's a little bit of building, and there's you build to a climax, you build to a finish, right? WWE writers seem to have lost this concept entirely, and it just makes me sad. Anyway, so then Tom Phillips and Byron Saxton, Samoa Joe. I love the fact that Joe's on the program, by the way. But I'm a big fan of always have a wrestler in the broadcast booth, at least one. I'm not a fan of three-person teams. I prefer two. One non-wrestler, one wrestler usually does the trick. Even when I did play-by-play at the independent level, the best times I ever had was when there was a wrestler along with me, preferably a competent one. I had a few incompetent ones along with me from time to time, but a competent wrestler was always a good plan because it was enjoyable and something worth watching. Anyway, we jump to an announcement that Becky Lynch will return next week to confront the Money in the Bank winner. That's part of the commercial. I mean, that's good, I guess. And the announcers announce that we're going to have a gauntlet match for the final spot in the Money in the Bank match on the men's side. Still really haven't explained why they took Apollo Crews out after building up so deeply last week, but maybe it was the fact that they didn't have enough talent to fill out a show, and so they needed to do something to fill a show, and maybe that's why he got the push, and it never intended for him to be there anyway. I don't know. Anyhow, so Bobby Lashley out first and with Titus O'Neil. In less than a minute, he wins with a spear. Second incarnation of the same thing. Less than 30 seconds this time. Bobby Lashley takes out Akira Tozawa. Now, a couple of things with this. Number one, you've cut people from WWE. And no offense to Akira Tozawa, and I know I'm going to get hate from his fans, but wouldn't he do better in a Japanese promotion or an international promotion or AEW or the NWA or Ring of Honor or somewhere where he can really ply his talents? I mean, sadly, WWE is never going to let him do more than be, at best, a mid-card guy. So why not cut him when you're cutting everybody else? It's not that I'm bashing the guy's talents. He's very talented, but he doesn't fit with the archetype of what WWE really wants, so why keep him on staff? I don't get it, especially if you're going to beat him in under 30 seconds here. Then we go to Lashley and Shelton Benjamin. Less than 2 minutes, Lashley wins quickly with another spear. I like the fact that they're strong-arming Bobby Lashley into a position of authority, at least for now. Of course, they blow it before they get to the end of it, but anyhow. But at the same time, there's no real, there's no payoff to it. Shelton Benjamin, so Titus O'Neil, older guy that they can squash. Then they've got a cruiserweight they feel they can squash. Then they've got Shelton Benjamin, another older guy they feel they can squash. Benjamin at least gets some offense in, hits a nice blockbuster, and then Lashley drives Benjamin into the barricade on the outside, leaps over the spear attempt and hits an enziguri. Lashley comes back with another version of the spear and hits for the win. Yay, hurrah. Now, Humberto Carrillo against Bobby Lashley, there's a DQ here. And Lashley's gone. This is stupid. So Lashley wins, beats a guy. Wins, beats a guy. Wins, beats a guy. DQ? So we've got to protect Bobby Lashley to the point we need to DQ him. If that's the case, why not have it be somebody is actually beating the heck out of him, he gets frustrated and hucks the referee across the ring? No, instead he just shoves the ref because he's minorly miffed. I think there's a better way to do the same thing and have it have at least made sense. I mean, the match, first of all, starts during a break, which I don't like anyway, but it is what it is. You're not going to convince people, convince them either, but you're not going to convince people that, starting a match during a break is a bad idea. Carrillo, he's a real talented guy. I don't know a ton about him, but from what I've seen, I like him. He hits a moonsault, he hits drop kick, he, takes a couple of Bobby Lashley suplexes. Lashley works him over for a while. Referee tries to back Lashley off, and then the ref yells at him for touching him and DQs him. I don't know why. I mean, I realize they've booked him strong and they don't want him to actually drop a fall, but at the same time, with what's coming later in the match, he could have dropped a fall. And I don't think Carrillo would have been lost to Lashley here. So then we have Angel Garza out with Zelina Vega. Garza works him over. Lana's upset, trying to remain, or trying to reason with Lashley about her not being at ringside being a problem, and he's like, I don't want to deal with this right now. They're going with this stupid divorce angle, continuing, okay, whatever, soap opera, episodic television, I guess I get it. Anyhow, Garza, dominant, and Carrillo counters Wing Clipper into a roll-up for the pin. Carrillo advances. Carrillo then has to face another one of Zelina's talents. I think they wasted her this week by not having her talk so much. Austin Theory out. Theory was in complete control. Hits superplex, but Carrillo gets a pinfall win with a small package and advances. I think this is stupid. Austin Theory should not be dropping this many falls. I realize some people say he's young, but there's a way to build a guy who doesn't lose once in a while. I think Theory is one of the guys where lightning in a bottle could be done. He's 22. If you keep him strong, and then when he finally loses, it means something. Or if he had to lose, he could have lost to the returning AJ Styles, who shows up next in the gauntlet match. I think Theory gains more from losing to Styles than Carrillo does. And so, anyway, Styles is back for the first time since being buried alive at WrestleMania. That was like less than a month ago. And also it's underplayed like he's back for the first time since he twisted his ankle. It's not a big deal that, he's like buried. Anyway, so Styles' first match since Mania started during a break, so that means he's not that important, at least not to the WWE brass, to start a match during a break. Again, I don't want to hear, especially in a tape show, that they couldn't have timed these better. That's complete BS, and it's lazy timing. You can orchestrate breaks, especially in a longer match, to a point where you come back to action, you come back maybe to a guy coming into it, or there's ways to do it. And it also could have been clipped to the point where you didn't have to start parts of the gauntlet in commercial break. But anyway, they're not going to do it because they don't think it's important. So Styles comes back. Carrillo counters several times. Styles with strikes, fights back with knees, and Styles uses a dragon screw leg whip to target the leg. Carrillo up with a dragon screw into a DDT attempt, followed with an enziguri. Carrillo tries a reverse DDT into a small package for a near fall. Nicely done. Styles applies the calf crusher. After a few more minutes of action for the win, Styles advances to Money in the Bank. Great. You've got some name power in there. Now, this promo, poor AJ has been written crappy lingo, and I feel for him. Styles, he's attacking Carrillo post-match. I guess that's fine. He says he's not a zombie, he's not a ghost, he's not dead. He says there's no Undertaker there to stop him. He says he was buried alive, but so what? So basically what we're saying is what happened at WrestleMania doesn't matter. Oh, that's great. So next year, when we want people to spend money on WrestleMania, or we want people to buy the network, why bother? Biggest event of the year, matches don't really matter. Nothing matters. So if nothing matters, then did it matter that Drew McIntyre won? According to AJ Styles, probably not. Again, really stupid. And again, I don't know how you write your way out of this. Maybe you go really crazy with it and you say, yes, I was buried alive, and yes, I barely died, but I had a backup plan, and I had someone there with a backhoe who dug me out once the Undertaker left the property. I mean, you could still write this in a way that makes some semblance. You're not going to make something like a buried alive match make total sense, but you could have written it to the point where it makes some sense. I had my family there, and then they knew if I went down to call the emergency rescue team, whatever. But there's a way to write it to where even that makes some semblance of sense. Anyhow, so this also means that didn't mean he lost. He didn't lose a thing. well, if he didn't lose, then why isn't the match still going on, or the fight still going on? Styles said he'd do anything to get into the Money in the Bank and to get the contract. He'd said if he had to, he'd throw Rey Mysterio or Aleister Black off of the roof of the building. Okay, so basically, AJ Styles just went on international television and threatened to kill somebody. Um, does this not bring up worry? And should somebody not be calling legal authorities on this threat? Again, I mean, I get it. I'll do anything, but I'm gonna throw you off the top of a building, a multi-story building. That's a little far and a little unbelievable. I tend to prefer believability in my wrestling. After all, if we're so worried that children are incapable of independent thought, do we really want to be having a wrestler who's popular threatening to throw people off buildings for fear that children could try it at home? Anyway, he says he's willing to throw Rey or Aleister Black off the building. He then says he'll win the contract at Money in the Bank and it'll be phenomenal. I don't know. We've crossed into the second hour. We're counting down moments in Money in the Bank. I don't like these segments because, again, they're filler. I get that episodic television in wrestling over the last 35, 40 years has included highlight packages throughout programming, but I think it's lazy. Personally, I'm of the opinion, and the way that I would run any company that I run, independent or national or international or whatever, if I ever have that opportunity, if I ever have a backer or I'm independently wealthy, I'm going to put a package that's 3 to 5 minutes at the end of every television program, and that will serve as a way. If I'm doing live events, then you just put the 5-minute package at the start of every program live in the arena, and you put it live at the start of every show, so that, let's say, fans tune in late, right? They tune in 5 after the hour, and so now they haven't missed anything because that first 5 minutes is dedicated to what happened last week. That is the only time you should have repeat content on a program. And I know people say, well, what about fans that tune in late? Guess what? If they tune in late, they missed it. They're going to go find it online anyway, or they're going to go to their DVR, or they're going to do whatever. You don't need to waste time with video recaps. Not in 2020. It worked. It worked in 1985 because not everyone had a VCR or a recording device. In 2020, it's just lazy. Anyway. So they count it down, yada yada. Charlie Caruso in-ring interview with Seth Rollins. Rollins, I know he's got a polarizing character right now. Rollins tells her that he has faith in his disciple, Murphy. Caruso asks about upcoming match with Drew McIntyre. Says McIntyre is not a leader and that it's his duty to be champion and who will take us into the future. Meaning that it's Rollins' duty, not McIntyre's. So Rollins then says being a leader was more than what you did in the ring. McIntyre was not ready for this. There's despair and dream crushing and horrible things coming when you do something like this. He wants to unburden McIntyre. He wants to save McIntyre from all the pain. He'd do anything to win the championship anyway. It's fine, but I mean, there's another way to have done the same thing, you know? He's just an example, and I'm just doing this off the top of my head, but, Seth Rollins comes out and he says something like, Drew, I don't think you want it enough. I don't think you want to get up at 5 in the morning to go to a media appearance where you're hyping a live event that's underattended. I don't think you want to go to the gym to take pictures with someone's snot-nosed kid for no money. I don't think you want to get in a bus or get in your car or go wait in line at the airport just to get your flight messed up or your baggage get lost and then have to explain why you're running late. I don't think you want to study hours of footage on YouTube and social media just to be ready for the next opponent. I don't think you want to do that 300 plus days a year. I don't think you want to worry about every time you get in the ring getting an injury and having that belt taken away from you. I don't think you want to go to meet Make-A-Wish kids on your day off. I don't think you want it enough. But you know what? Even though I don't want it, I'll take that responsibility because I'm destined for it. I have been since I got to this company. I will be on the day I leave this company. It is my destiny to be that. So let me save you from yourself. Let me save you from your ego. Let me save you from your false hope. And let me save these people from watching you flounder. See, they like you, Drew. They see something in you, Drew. But what they don't see is that when you fail, it's going to remind them of their own failure. I'm trying to save not only you, but I'm trying to save these people too. You see, I mean, that's, what was that, 45 seconds? But that's compelling because it taps into the people at home. One thing that I think WWE misses a lot is it doesn't make the promos relatable to the average person sitting at home, that to where the talents have social issues or personality issues like they do. And I think if they made characters more human, if they wrote more episodic television where things were human, which they do a couple of times here tonight, and I'll get to that as we go through the review, but they don't do it with their top talents nearly enough. In some ways, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but in some ways I miss John Cena for that reason, because he had at least a portion of every promo that was relatable to the average person. And that's missing right now. Drew's pretty good at it, and I think he's getting better with it, but he's not fully there yet. Of course, they're not giving him enough meat to hook into either, which is the writer's fault, but he's just not there yet. Anyway, MVP hypes up Shane Thorne and Brendan Vick backstage, or Vink rather. Make sure to Vink makes sure to point out he's 6'5". Edge and Orton was randomly announced for next week. If it's anything like WrestleMania, please make it shorter and hopefully more compelling. Also, how come both guys aren't talking about injuries, or they didn't talk about injuries from the WrestleMania match? Kind of bothers me a bit. Anyway, Caruso asked Murphy why he's so loyal to Rollins. Rollins and Murphy will eventually go at it. The foreshadowing is in this promo. Murphy said Rollins took him in when he needed him and when they needed each other. Murphy says he hopes to be on Rollins' level one day, maybe one day soon. Maybe he'll even be better. He said they both knew the day was coming, but that for today, he was still ready to be a student. Murphy wanted to focus on tonight. He wanted revenge on McIntyre for trying to break his jaw last week. And Murphy and Rollins. Murphy says that Rollins thinks he can beat McIntyre where he knows he can beat McIntyre. And then, for all that knowledge, later in the show, small spoiler, but if you're listening to this, you really, really don't care, he actually does not beat McIntyre. Big surprise. Anyway, so Shane Thorne and Brendan Vick, Vink, why do I not like that name? Anyhow, defeated Ricochet and Cedric Alexander in 4.5 minutes. I'm really a fan of Ricochet and Cedric. I think they're the new Kendrick and London. I think they're a Rockers knockoff. I think they're a Rock and Roll Express knockoff, only with updated moves and such. I don't think they should be losing to this team, but they're not asking me, so I guess we have to tolerate what I'm given, even though I don't like it. So Thorne and Vic didn't get an entrance, which is just dumb. Black and red for the babyface tag team. Ricochet and Alexander seemed to be almost ready to win, but Thorne took over and hits a cannonball in the corner. Ricochet hits a super kick. Vink gives Ricochet a big boot and a pinfall win. Vink pins Ricochet. Now, here's the thing. Okay, so number one, tag team wrestling is not what it used to be, right? Like, this makes me sad, but it's facts are facts. But you have an up-and-coming team in Alexander and Ricochet. They should be undefeated until they at least get a shot at the champions. Preferably the Viking Raiders are the champions, because I think it's a better story than the Street Profits. But then, I don't get the Street Profits as anything other than a comedy gimmick, so I'm not as big a fan of them being champions as most people do. I'd love to see a comment below. Comment below if you think the Street Profits are good tag team champions for 2020, and just a line or two as to why, because I'm not seeing it. I think the Viking Raiders are the best team in a long time. I think they have what I would consider Dudley-like qualities. They could be a team for 10 years, and it works. But I don't see the Street Profits in the same vein. If you do, please comment below. Anyway, we do another Money in the Bank moment, yada yada. Non-title match, Viking Raiders defeat the Raw Tag Team Champions, Street Profits. Maybe I'm wrong, but I had assumed this was going to be a championship match. Am I wrong for assuming that? Comment below if you thought the same, or if you didn't and it was made clear and I'm just forgetting. Anyhow, Ford was overzealous while bragging, which allows Eric to take over. Eric decks him with shoulder tackle. Ivar takes Dawkins to the outside. Eric gives Ford a knee strike, followed up with a splash, but Ford kicked out. I don't know. I mean, yeah. I'm not a fan of strikes not mattering, and certainly from guys the size of the Viking Raiders, every strike should count. That type of strike should have been at least a loopy, needs to make a tag moment, but neither here nor there. Ford and Dawkins attempt to come back, but the Raiders are back on attack. Dawkins eventually makes a tag, and then Exploder Suplex, Corner Splash, Bulldogs, blah, blah, blah. Ivar goes into the barricade on the outside, and we went to break. Again, to me, the Viking Raiders are your Demolition of this era. They're your Road Warriors. They're your Dudleys. They're a one-of-a-kind tag team. They should not be challenged by a team that's mainly meant for comedy, at least in my estimation. I'd much rather have seen, let's build up a Styles clash, no pun intended, the returning AJ Styles, with a team like Ricochet and Cedric. But anyway, it is what it is. Come back from the break, and we see Dawkins hit Eric with the dreaded chinlock, drop kicks, near falls, running wild on both guys. Raiders were briefly in control until Dawkins hits Eric, and Eric hits a gut-wrench suplex. Respective tags, Ford uses clotheslines, and then a double back suplex for a near fall by the champions. Ivar responds with a double handspring back elbow. Guy that big shouldn't be doing that, something that athletic. Raiders set up a Viking experience, but Dawkins tackles Eric, and Ford gives a DDT. Dawkins and Ivar hits a spine buster, and Ford follows with a crazy looking frog splash. Eric broke up the pin. Raiders are back in control, and they clear Ford from the ring and give Dawkins a Viking experience for the pinfall win and a Viking Raiders win. It's fine, but again, to me, the Viking Raiders should still be close to invincible. Charlie Caruso interviews Drew McIntyre and informed him of what Murphy said earlier. McIntyre says that Murphy was a confused man, easy cult victim, wanted to be sacrificed, and so he's willing to be the one to execute the slaughter. Another Money in the Bank moment. Viking Raiders told Caruso this wasn't just about success, this was about dominance. Ivar said that he and Eric respect the Street Profits, but they were simply better. Said they they completely destroyed the smoke. Aleister Black cuts an interesting promo with some inset music behind him. I like this. A little bit of ambiance. Anyway, Black says that Styles, he wonders if Styles should have expanded a little more on what it's like to be buried alive, crawling to get out, and being swallowed by darkness. He says that the experience of being buried did not humble Styles, and then threatened to throw Black off the building. Black says he better not get up, said he would get the contract, and Styles would wish that he was buried deeper than 6 feet. Nice little promo. I mean, again, I'm not all for the let's throw a guy off a building concept, but if you're going that way, then it was well done. Rey Mysterio cuts a promo backstage. He says he's been wrestling long enough to know what to expect in almost every match except this one upcoming. He acknowledged that the 6 men and 6 women would be fighting at the same time, which I think is stupid because in theory, a woman could get in a man's way, a man could get in a woman's way, and then you have the unenviable what happens about intergender combat. I don't like this. Mysterio called this the riskiest match of his career and says he was closer to the end of his career than the beginning. He called the risk worth the reward. I don't know. I mean, it's just a shot at a championship match, so not really a fan. Charlotte Flair comes out. Why is she on Raw? We don't really know. She acknowledges, even in her promo, that she's on Raw and NXT, but we don't really know why. So here's my idea. Let's cut down the number of championships in WWE. We cut them down to 6. We have 1 World Women's Champion, 1 World Tag Team Champion set, and 1 World Heavyweight Champion. And then 1 championship that's show exclusive. My idea with doing this is, if you are the World Champion or World Tag Team Champions, you should be on all the shows. And everyone's going to say, well, that's not fair. They don't get enough time off if you make them appear on all the shows. Guess what? You want to be a champion? You put in extra time. You put in extra work. You get her done. And that would determine who's really a company man or woman, right? Like, if you sign up to be a champion, it's like, hey, I'm willing to be on the road extra. I'm willing to do more. And that will show you who's most loyal. And I think every company should do this. The expectation that to be champion means something different, I think still applies in 2020. Whether it's wrestling, whether it's any sport, champions should be held to a higher standard. And I still think that's a cultural thing. So the champions of the world should be on all programs, or almost every program. The rest, if you have a episodic television program and there's 1 championship that everyone's fighting for, that means you can have number 1 contenders matches, number 2 contenders matches, which means when a show champion defends his or her championship, well, actually not her, because we wouldn't need to have independent women's championships for each show. We could just have the 1 woman's champion, because I think all women could battle for one thing. But anyway, each match would matter when the champion's out there, or the show champion's out there, and I think that matters. Anyway, so Charlotte calls herself the hardest working woman in the in any industry, because she works 2 days a week. So for those of us that work real jobs, that work 6 or 7 days a week, I'm a 7-day-a-week worker, so that means I'm like, 3.5 times what Charlotte is? Anyway, kind of a goofy comment, but whatever. Charlotte talks about Io Shirai winning a brutal ladder match, says it's Io's dream to work against Charlotte, and she's glad to be able to be part of giving her dream, even if it leads to her bowing down to the Queen. Then we see Liv Morgan come out. Morgan asks if she remembers her. Morgan wants her to take her seriously. Morgan didn't care if she was taken seriously or not, and Charlotte grew up with a silver spoon in her mouth is where they finally settled. So Morgan didn't grow up with a daddy to walk her down to school, let alone walk her down the aisle to her career. Morgan wanted to be champion and was ready to knock down the barriers to make things happen. She said she'd take out Charlotte if she had to get there. Charlotte said Morgan doesn't even know who she was. Charlotte knew who she was, and that she's the daughter of Ric Flair. She was indeed born with a silver spoon in her mouth, and she's proud of that fact. She says people like Io Shirai and Liv Morgan wanted to measure themselves against her, and that's fine. Morgan told Queenie they should get a referee and see what happens. I actually, and I don't remember where it was, but Liv tossed the two-word phrase "blessed be" in here. I don't remember where it was in the promo. You can go back and check it out. But it's a Wiccan term. I wonder if they're going for her as more of a new agey kind of new thought kind of character. I'd really be interested to see where they go with that. Maybe you could do even an infusion of like a Papa Shango type thing where she puts a curse on a champion or an opponent or something. I just think there's a million places you can go with Liv Morgan. I think she's talented in the ring, and I'd love to see her character given more of a value. Just under 12 minutes for Morgan and Flair. Good little match here. She's in control. She being Flair in control for the majority of the beginning of the match. Morgan comes back with a drop kick and a takedown. Charlotte knocks her down with a clothesline. Morgan uses driving leg drop, but Charlotte tosses her out of the way and then tosses her into the buckle. They went to the break and come back. The Charlotte then is in control during the break, but Morgan comes off with a running clothesline and a face buster. Some double foot stomps for a near fall. Charlotte blocks the cover, and then Morgan smiles at Charlotte and shows that she's not willing to back down. Morgan hits a codebreaker off the ropes. Charlotte blocks a leg scissors, hits several takedowns and a sit-out powerbomb for a near fall. Charlotte counters a drop kick and goes into a Boston Crab, but Morgan gets a rope break with Charlotte sitting on the top rope. Morgan brought her down with another codebreaker for another near fall. Morgan tries the Oblivion, which is just a flatliner off the ropes, but Charlotte blocks it and then sets in the figure eight for the submission victory. Good match to make Morgan, but Charlotte Flair probably. I am week to week on Charlotte or Becky being the best woman certainly in North America, maybe the world. And this week Charlotte holds that distinction so far. Then we see Drew McIntyre versus Murphy in a non-title match. Just over 6 minutes for McIntyre to get the win. Rollins is watching from the stage. He's having difficulty watching his disciple get slaughtered. McIntyre sends him into the barricade and then hits a flying double knee strike. McIntyre kicked out quickly after the double knee by Murphy. Sorry about that. And then, Murphy comes back with strikes until McIntyre headbutted him. Murphy goes to the top rope, but McIntyre knocks him off, sending him into the barricade. Then we see Murphy tied up, and McIntyre super kicks him and hits a power bomb for just a 1 count. Murphy sets up in a corner and did the Claymore countdown, and then was immediately killed with a Claymore kick from McIntyre. McIntyre wins. It was whatever. So Rollins gets on the apron. McIntyre invites him in the ring. Rollins bails out. McIntyre turns his back and begins ranting at someone, and then Rollins rolls back in. He almost hit the curve stomp. McIntyre saw it coming and headbutted him, and then McIntyre went for a Claymore kick, but Rollins bails out again. We close Raw on that note. It's a fine go-home show, I guess, but again, nothing here makes me... I'm intrigued to see who wins the Money in the Bank, but I'm more intrigued by the fallout next week than I am anything else. Like I don't care who really wins the Money in the Bank concept. I do care about the episodic television that follows it, and I really don't want to see the match. I'm afraid it's going to be clunky. But comment below. Are you excited for Money in the Bank, or are you where I am with it? In any event, this has been the Raw review for the 4th of May. Comment below. We'll have several uploads today and some TNT stuff too. If there's a series you want to see, give a comment. We'll see what we can do about getting it started in the next little while. Till next time, keep your feet on the ground. You're minding the moment. Till next time, everybody.